Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Sun City Grand. I'm Barbara Mel Goldman with Channel 22, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Bill Peter today. Bill, as you know, or may not, is a futurist, and today we're going to be talking about learning from birth to 100. Bill is a Sun City Grand resident, a college professor in Minnesota and Arizona, and a business consultant. Dramatically improving and learning education in the U.S. from birth to 100 is one of Bill's passions. He has taught senior citizens, MBA students, and many business people, and high school students as well. He'll share with us today the results of what he feels is the most comprehensive system analysis conducted to date on the fundamentals of learning and education. Good morning, Bill. How are you today? It's nice to see you.
Terrific, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Bill, before we begin, would you tell us what is the role of the futurist?
A futurist develops scenarios about the future, what might happen, what probably will happen, and what they would like to make happen. Actually, any organization leader is a futurist if they are having a vision for their business because they want to create an acceptable environment in the future.
Well, today's learning is about from birth to 100, and what prompted you to investigate this subject as a futurist?
I'm a futurist, and I've also done a lot of education, and it has been disturbing me over my lifetime that our K-12 system is so poor. And I've been reading and studying and reading books and studies, and I've concluded that our K-12 system is the weakest link in the United States society. And when I came to that conclusion, that it's the weakest link in U.S. society, I had to ask, well, what did we do about the K-12 system? And in my studying of the K-12 system, I concluded that we have to know how do people learn, and they learn starting at birth. We have the misconception that we go to school to learn, and that is a big misconception, and our school systems show it badly. And now I recognize and have done a lot of research, which I'll share with you, that says we are non-competitive with the rest of the world.
Well, what about returning to the emphasis on the 3 R's to improve education, Bill?
Oh boy, this is fun. The 3 R's. The 3 R's are reading, writing, and arithmetic. Everybody knows that. And you know where it came from? It came from pop culture. School days, dear old golden rule days, reading and writing and arithmetic, taught to the tune of the hickory stick. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's like 1930. Mm-hmm. Okay? The only problem with reading, writing, and arithmetic is they don't all start with R. Reading starts with R, writing starts with W, and arithmetic starts with A. That's about how screwed up our school system is. We're still talking about the 3 R's, and the 3 R's were not 3 R's. What we really need is to rethink basics. It is important that we have reading and writing. What we need is also speaking and listening. Speaking and listening aren't in the 3 R's, therefore we don't have to teach them, right? Stupid. Speaking and listening are critical. Reading and writing are critical. And instead of saying arithmetic, what we need is logical thinking and creative thinking. Now we're starting to get to more comprehensive view than the 3 R's. The 3 R's were obsolete the day they were mentioned in the nursery, in the little song that I sang. And that's about how archaic our school system is. I know that sounds bad, but we are so far behind. That's why I say it's the weakest link in U.S. society.
And according to your research and what you know, how do you see it? How do you see us able to improve on that?
The first thing to improve it is we have to recognize how bad it is. A study in 1983 called the Bell Report was given to the President of the United States in 1983 and said we were a nation at risk because of our terrible K-12 system. And it was repeated in 2004. And in 2004, to the President of the United States, we are worse off than we were before. In international tests, we rank our students in high school rank between number 25 and 29 in the world of all the nations that took the international test. We are sadly behind. And in math and science, we are so far behind that, for instance, right now, and this number will shock you and it shocks everybody, but it's factual, I know it's true. In 2006, China and India together produced 13 times as many college engineering graduates as the United States.
Oh, that's amazing.
They're not catching up. They are way ahead. When we wring our hands and say, gee, ain't it awful that the Chinese and the Indians are doing so much business around the world and growing so much, they're graduating together 13 times as many engineers as we are. And we say, how did we get in this mess? We got in this mess because we left education to educators.
And whose responsibility is it?
It is the responsibility of the parent, not the educators. Just think of what happened over the past 50 years. There was a 20-year period where we said we're not going to teach phonics anymore. The educators decided we're not going to teach phonics anymore. There was a 20-year period where we decided you don't have to memorize the multiplication table. You got a calculator for that. By not memorizing the multiplication table, we were not training the brains of people on the format of 2 times 2 is 4 and 3 times 3 is 9 and so on. And if you see that whole matrix, you're forming a matrix of numbers and you say, there's a pattern to those numbers. There's a pattern to those numbers. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 6 is 30. Well, that's just one more 5. Oh, I get it. Once you get a pattern like that. But if you have people punching that into a calculator, our education system, whole United States, spends over, right now, $500 billion a year educating 50 million K through 12 students. The money is there, but they haven't done the fundamental work on what needs to be changed. And I'll be happy to discuss what needs to be changed in order for us to be more effective.
Well, let me ask you something, Bill. Do you indicate that the education 50 years ago might have been better in the schools?
Absolutely.
Well, then let me tell you something. I went to 11 grammar schools, and in one of them I had to learn the multiplication tables up to 12 in 1 minute. We were clocked and in front of the class. At first nervous, and then I learned them, and I have not forgotten it. And I was on the move as a little one and had to be educated elsewhere, and I got a very fine education. And I don't see my college granddaughters able to put a letter together as well as I can, and I don't have their background. So I'm wondering.
What has happened to our education over the past 50 years? I call it a 1950s vintage education system, is we have frozen and we have gone downhill. We have dumbed it down to the lowest common denominator. We have low expectations and we get low results. If you take people coming in from Asia, coming in from Europe, and to the United States, and they see what grade they should be in, they say, well, we had 5th grade, so we should be going into 6th grade. They're ready for 8th. They are 2 years ahead of our children. Now, what I've done is I've done a comprehensive systems analysis of the world. And most of the places in Asia have 240 days a year of school. We have 175. Now, if I was educating people with 240 days and you were educating people with 175, you might have a little problem and I might have an advantage.
That's right.
Now, in addition to that, every single teacher, 100% of the teachers we talk to, say that in a long summer vacation, the students forget so much that the month of September, when they come back, they have to reiterate what they learned in May and before they left. So we not only have them fewer days, but we have to repeat because we have such a longer vacation. So what does school systems have to do? We have to recognize that we have a problem. Our children are not competitive worldwide, and we have to do something different, and a school year length is important. Now, there are pockets of excellence. So to say that everything is bad, there are individual teachers that are wonderful. There are individual schools that are wonderful. There are individual parents that do their job. But as a general principle, we have a lot of deficiencies. So how do you get to the core? And the core is, how do people learn? And this is a breakthrough in our research. And what I did is I found out that happens to be a book that I've written called Role Modeling and Parenting, but I want to address yourself to this brain picture. And the human brain of a baby is priceless, okay? 17% of all of the neurons that are going to be developed in a lifetime are there at birth. This is a brain at age 5, 8, 12, 16, and 20. And you notice the color's a little bit different because it's developing. At birth, a child's brain is about 3/4 of a pound. By age 12, it's up to 3 pounds. The brain has increased in size. But by age 12, that's one here, it has still not got all of the neurons connected. So lo and behold, we find that a 12-year-old child where sexual hormone kind of things are happening, they don't have good judgment. Why don't they have good judgment? No teenager has good judgment because their brain is not fully developed. The prefrontal cortex, the very front part of the brain here, which is blue at age 20, is not developed completely. And now when you go back to the basics, I didn't do this research, this is somebody else's research obviously. We now know that the brain is developing gradually, and you can't expect good judgment from people when their brain isn't adequately developed. So what part of the brain is developed at age birth? At birth, 17% is developed. Nurture. How a child is nurtured from birth on develops the other 83% of the brain. There used to be a debate on how much of your learning is from nature. You were born smart, you were born dumb.
Nurture.
Nature versus nurture. We now know the answer. It's only about 10 years old that we've known this answer. I only found it out 2 years ago, but it's about 10 years ago that we found it out, that 17% is from birth and the other 83% is nurture. So getting back to the school system, the most important teacher of children is their parents.
All right, now I'm going to move you along, and it's very interesting, and we're going to be talking about this again because I intend to ask you to come back and talk some more. But because we're in a retirement community, although we're a very busy retirement community, we like to learn. So put us at our age level and tell us what learning is about as a person progresses through life.
Okay. The brain has these billions of neurons that are going to be connected, and they are connected and stay connected and get more connections if you keep using your brain. So
how do we do that?
Well, if you want to watch cartoons on television, you don't develop very much new brain matter. Okay, so the secret, and I teach senior citizens courses, and I've written several books, and I teach senior citizens. My personal way to keep active is to learn something new every single day.
Well, for the audience, I had the pleasure of attending Bill's class at Rio Salado on learning from birth to 100, and it was a revelation to me. It gave me insight to learn the wisdom that we gain as we get older, and we share that wisdom. If we're lucky enough to have gained it, we want to share it. So I was one of his people that went up to the board and dissected and found the 8 important periods in your life when that are important, very important, when significant things happen to you in your life, and they could have been traumatic, they could have been devastating, or they could have been extremely high. However, we took some wisdom from even the most horrific situation, and we turned it around. And I learned that. It's become so valuable to me that I made my own chart from Bill's class. I keep it with me, and I've shared it with my family. And what did I learn from it? It made me feel very special with my learning processes. And I want to thank you now, Bill, for the wonderful information you passed on to me. Bill is a wealth of knowledge. Talk some more about our people in this community, please.
Well, if you're going to learn something new every day, if that's your objective, you have to put yourself in learning situations. So you have to read a lot. Reading is a very important source of information. I teach a class on current events for the thinking person. Mm-hmm. It turns out that we are very lazy in analysis of current events. And people get a message on the television and they say it's true. And many times it is not true, or it's only partially true, and the whole context hasn't been given. So for senior citizens who are watching television, who are reading the newspaper, we have to be careful not to think that what we hear mentioned several times, many times, repeated, is therefore true. The publication media, the TV media, has a way of repeating something that was repeated before, and when it's repeated 1,000 times, we think it's true. We have to put ourselves into the discipline of thinking, what is the context? Valerie Plame, a politically difficult subject, okay? Mm-hmm. Valerie Plame was on television last night because she was giving a testimony. It turns out there are facts and there are statements. Mm-hmm. She was not a covert person. She had been out of CIA overseas duty for more than 5 years, and that's the definition. Mm-hmm. You're not covert if you've been out of overseas duty for more than 5 years. So she was not covert, but they keep repeating that that Libby revealed the situation that she was a covert operative. She was not covert. The next issue is, who leaked it? Richard Armitage leaked it. And now we know the facts that Richard Armitage leaked it to the press. It had nothing to do with Libby. Libby got it about the 5th cycle. He did not get it first. Richard Armitage did it first. Richard Armitage has not been punished. Richard Armitage did not go in front of a jury. He doesn't have to possibly go to jail. The whole thing was a witch hunt. And it turns out that Fitzgerald, who was the district attorney going after it, knew that Richard Armitage was the leaker, and he told Richard Armitage to keep quiet. And for the next year and a half, he pursued the case. Now, whether you like that politics or don't like that politics, the point is you have to be a thinker all the time and try to go behind the first story that you get. And that's not easy for everybody, but it's important. Another real challenge is to learn things, get opinions that are uncomfortable to you. If you believe that there is such a thing as global warming, mm-hmm. because you've heard about it, then get a contrary opinion and then weigh them. Mm-hmm. If you don't get the contrary opinion, you don't have a balanced view. So you have to learn something new every day. How do you do that? You read, you go to classes, you study, you keep the mind going and challenging your preconceived notions.
That's the big word, is challenge.
Challenging your preconceived notions. If you are absolutely sure of something, try to read something that is contradictory to it. One of the biggest filters that people have in their mind is, I want to reconfirm my my notions. Therefore, I only watch certain television stations. I only read certain newspapers because they make me comfortable with my preconceived notions. When you do that, you don't always get all the facts because you're just getting one side of the story.
Because they're not keeping an open mind.
They're not keeping an open mind and seeking yourself. I'll tell you a story which has got to do with learning and education, but also I think is pertinent. I wanted to improve the K-12 system, and so I had to do some homework. So I was asked to teach 60 students in a special school. And I had 5 groups, and totally 60 students in this special school. This special school was mostly pregnant girls. And they had a nursery down the hallway so that the girls who had their baby had their children down in the hallway. And I had 5 different classes on reparenting yourself. In other words, don't just listen to the message that you got from your parents. You have the right, as a teenager, to reparent yourself and put the messages in your brain that you want to have for the rest of your life. Sort of like the course that we had on Wisdom Seekers, but it's reparenting. So you go through a ritual on reparenting yourself and end up with the 10 messages you received initially and the 10 messages you want to keep for the rest of your life. So the students did this. And after I had a chance to talk with the teachers. There was always a teacher with me. And I said, this funny thing, in this class there were pregnant girls, girls who had had a child, and there were a half a dozen boys who had gotten kicked out of 4 different schools. You know, they were the problem kids or pregnant girls. And so I talked to the teachers and said, now, I'm passionate to improve the K-12 system. And I've just gotten a sample of people who are not making it so well. But one of the things that I found out is that not a single one of the children ever mentioned father or husband. They mentioned mama, but they never mentioned father or husband.
No role modeling.
So I said, is that a problem? They said, of course it's a problem. These kids are in this problem with their life because they had a baby before they were planned. They had a baby before their brain was ready to do good judgment. Okay? And they had no role models who told them, this is what you should be doing, this is what you should be doing, you should be studying, you should be studying. And they are in the mess they're in because they didn't have good role models. It was that impetus that got me to do the final studying and write Role Modeling and Parenting, because the school system can predict, first grade teachers can predict with over 90% accuracy whether a kid will graduate from high school when they come in first grade.
It's amazing.
And the reason for that is they can see that the kid has not been reading, cannot print their name, cannot count to 10. Their parents haven't helped them do the simple things. They've never been to a library, stuff like that. And if a child doesn't have that training for the first 5 or 6 years of life, then their brain is behind, and then they think they're dumb. And once they think they're dumb, and their peers say that they're dumb, they tune off from education. So, to improve the K-12 system, we must work on effective role modeling and parenting, because otherwise the kids tune out early. And when they tune out, what we found is more than 30% don't graduate from high school. And the ones that do graduate from high school, the employers have told us, and the statistics, I didn't make this stuff up, 58% of those that do graduate from high school are not prepared for the work world. We have pushed them ahead in grade just to get them out, not because they know their multiplication table and they know algebra. And so. In fact, I'm now teaching in college, and I talk to college teachers. We now have people teaching algebra in college for college credit that most students should be learning in high school You know, so it's college level algebra. And there's many problems that need to be fixed. But the point is, with that little story that I told you, it's a society problem when children don't learn, and the primary responsibility is the parents. Parents are the ones that need to do the first role modeling. The three greatest gifts that a parent can give to a child: time, unconditional love, and the love of lifelong learning.
All right. I want to go back to the reparenting class. Is that what you called it, that the
No.
girls took, that you had the children take?
Yes.
Was that called reparenting?
Reparenting.
So they were to take their own conception of what a parent should be like? Were they capable emotionally and mentally to do that?
Oh, yes.
Exercise.
The reason they were emotionally capable of doing that is because I had a piece of paper with about 80 examples of the messages you might have received from your parents.
Mm-hmm.
You're dumb, you're beautiful, you're ugly, I wish you were never born, I can't stand you just like your father, you're a good dancer. So positive and negative comments. I would have wonderful comments and negative comments. And I said, look at this list, because I've done this with adults.
Yes.
And this is the first time I did it with children.
And you were successful
And
with the children?
Successful with children and with adults.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I do it with adults, they make a list of the 10 messages that were most prominent.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, make a pile, put the positives on one side and the negatives.
Yes.
And if you have 2 positives and 8 negatives, that's okay. If you have 7 negatives and 3 positives, that's okay. There's no right or wrong answer. But those are the ones that you have received as the dominant message from your caretakers, your parents, your grandmother, the babysitter, whoever was taking care of you. Now, when you finish, you're going to have 10 messages that you want to keep the rest of your life. So take the ones that you liked from your past, and maybe there's only 3 of them, 5 of them, whatever, keep them. And take the other ones and rewrite them as the messages you wish to put in your brain the rest of your life. Now you've got a list of 10 messages. The parenting teacher that was in there with me had never seen this done, was flabbergasted,
valuable tool.
was flabbergasted and
Yeah.
said, wow. She said to every one of her students, we're going to have a notebook and we're going to put your 10 messages that you want for yourself in there for you.
Bill, we don't have very much time. I think that the point that you make about reparenting is very valuable. But how, briefly, could we as seniors change the K through 12? Is there anything that we could do on a personal level that might be beneficial to our young people's education today?
Well, I guess there are a couple things. The first thing is by being well informed that we are really in very bad shape. Our children, and in our case our grandchildren, are the ones at risk. And we are leaving a very bad legacy.
So what can we do about it?
Well, we can vote all the time.
Okay.
That's one thing we can do is vote. We need to change the agenda, however, to teach the principles of life. And I'll summarize what the principles of life are very quickly. Every time we see our grandchildren, every time we see our children, we can do this directly, that the successful path to life starts as a baby, where you learn to play and learn, and you're with your mom and dad, and then you study in school, and then you graduate from high school, and then you decide what kind of career you might want to have, and then you hopefully go to college, and then you get married, and then you have a baby. And
It's in that order.
And when people forget that order, and they have a baby, before they have a job, and before they have a spouse that wants to stay, that's when they get in trouble. That's the message that we need to...
Well, we're going to pass on what we know here. For myself, I call myself a lifelong learner. Many people here in Sun City Grand that I've met feel the same way. Bill, you're certainly an asset to our community. I hope that you'll consider coming on again and talking to us some more. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I enjoyed it so much, and I hope our audience did as well, for Channel 22. I'm Barbara Mel Goldman. We were speaking to Bill Peter. Thank you and have a nice day. It's a wrap.